Welcome to the Marketing Smarts Live Show by MarketingProfs and the Marketing Smarts Podcast, where we dive into B2B news, resources, valuable guest content, and much, much more each and every week. Hey, if you're a B2B marketer looking for a place to learn, keep up to date, and have some fun along the way, then grab a beverage, a notepad, or at least some style of writing utensil, and welcome to the show. Hello to all my Marketing Smarts Live viewers today. I'm super excited to bring you yet another episode of the Marketing Smarts Live Show. This week's topic is all about how you B2B marketers can create human-like, that's right, human-like interactions in an increasingly digital world. So if you're ready to get your learn on, buckle up and let's get ready to rock and roll. That's a really bad guitar sound. But anyway, I'm your boy, George B. Thomas, speaker, trainer, catalyst, and host of this here show, the Marketing Smarts Live Show, and the Marketing Smarts Podcast, found on your favorite podcast app. Our guest clips today are brought to you by none other than Kristen Habacht. Kristen, Chief Revenue Officer at Typeform, a provider of people-friendly forms and surveys. She has nearly 2 decades of experience growing and scaling revenue organizations, especially in the PLG and sales assisted space. Kristen previously served as Shogun as president and COO, scaling the PLG motion and raising its Series C. Prior to Shogun, she had leadership positions at Atlassian, running the Americans and APAC enterprise sales team, and later building out a new global team. She was also the VP of sales and first revenue hire at Trello. You may have heard of that place, leading it through its acquisition by Atlassian. She sits on the boards of Guided CX, Passion.io, and Refined. Now, remember, the clips of Kristen today are pulled from the full Marketing Smarts Podcast episode. And if you want to listen to the full interview with Kristen and myself, make sure to tune in to the Marketing Smarts Podcast. Link to the whole show will be in the description below after the live show ends. Let's be honest, it might be there right now, but just wait till the show ends to actually click on it. Now, in this episode, again, I'm talking with Kristen Habacht about B2B marketers can create human-like interactions in an increasingly digital world. In this clip, I wanted to ask Kristen about the size of the company that should be focusing on how B2B marketers can create these human-like interactions and what we should be thinking about along the way. And here's what she had to share.
I think one of the things I think about is that it doesn't matter what size company you are, you can still create beautiful, thoughtful, meaningful engagement digitally, personally, whatever it is, without having to make these giant investments in them. I think that's something I hear a lot, which is, but we're small, or we're too big, or whatever it is, And I think that there's small ways to delight people every day with different interactions. And again, whether that's through your form, whether that's through your salesperson having done one little bit of extra research, whatever piece it is. And so I think I would say, just think about customers like they're humans on the other end of the phone, or the other end of the email. What would delight you? What will delight them? And people tend to buy and engage with people they like and the brands that they like, even if it's not always the best thing out there. And so, try and be the likable kid in the class. So there you go. Maybe that's life and business all together.
Is that life and business all together? What would delight you? What will delight them? Are you creating meaningful engagement with your customers? Are you letting budget conversations get in the way of that? And is your organization treating its customers like humans? Is your organization hyper-focused on delighting its customers? Well, that last one, put the answer to that in the chat pane or let me know on X using the hashtag MPB2B. And of course, tag me. I'm at George B. Thomas. Now, we'll get back to Kristen Habacht and her thoughts on how B2B marketers can create human-like interactions in an increasingly digital beep-bop-boop world. But first, I have to ask, are you part of the MarketingProfs community? If not, become part of the MarketingProfs community by heading to mprofs.com/MP today. That's mprofs.com/ MP today. Now, it's time for one of my favorite sections in the B2B news, where we talk about breaking B2B news or really important tips we find on the Google News tab related to you and your B2B business. This week, the title is Thought Leadership, the Human Element Your Marketing Needs by Ali Schwenk. AI might reduce the effort required to create marketing assets, but outsourcing expert perspective is a big mistake. AI is everywhere, filled the web with content that often lacks the depth, nuance, or forward-looking angle of expert insights. While tools like ChatGPT can supplement expertise with efficiency and creativity, more than ever, buyers need perspective that comes from years of experience and deep industry knowledge, something that hopefully we all have. In this sea of increasingly repetitive and recycled content, you need to offer something unique to capture attention. That's where thought leadership comes in. Yes, it's a buzzword that took a beating several years ago with many self-proclaimed thought leaders, but it has never been a more important part of your marketing strategy. To read the rest of this article, check out the link below when the live show is over. So let's get back to Kristen and her Marketing Smarts podcast episode. In this second clip, I wanted to ask Kristen what success looks like and how you can measure it pertaining to these human-like interactions. Here's what she had to share.
I mean, the revenue person in me says, well, one is, people are buying and engaging. That's a huge one with you, right? I think the other is it comes down to a combination of like NPS, not just around the product, but how people feel about the brand. Where are people in your funnel coming from? Typeform and Trello too, and Atlassian, where I had also been. The things that I universally love about these businesses is that they have an extremely high viral rate. And, I'm sure you can experience, anybody listening can experience this, which is like, there's a million products you probably have enjoyed that you love the product, but the company experience is so miserable that like, you just don't want to engage anymore, or you love the company experience so much you wish the product was a little bit better. So it's like those two things need to go hand in hand. And so to get a true viral motion, I feel like it means your company is doing both of those things right, which is the product is in a good place at solving a real problem, but people, every time you recommend something to somebody, it's a very personal moment. You're kind of putting your own self out and you're saying like, because what if they have a horrible experience and it's like, oh, maybe Kristen's judgment's so weird that she thinks that like everybody should fly, whatever, cheapo airlines. Didn't she ever have it? I didn't want to say any specific airline on that because I didn't want to get but you know what I mean? Where it's like suddenly somebody thinks not only worse of the brand, but worse of you for that recommendation. So like the hurdle to get a viral response is really high. And so I think people do that because they feel like the brand that they're about to recommend also reflects positively on them. And that again goes to that whole, like, that means I feel like, hey, other CRO or CMO, I know your time is worth a lot because I know how busy you are because I'm busy too. I wouldn't recommend somebody who's going to waste your time with filling out the same information 15 times, or they don't know how to speak to your pain point, or they don't, you know what I mean? I wouldn't do that. And so I think the virality element, the NPS element, the revenue element, obviously, are also pieces, and also other similar companies saying we should do stuff together. We should leverage our brands together. And so co-marketing are all big signals of those things for me.
What side of the camp do you or your organization fall into? Is your recommendation tied to the brand's ability to follow through on that recommendation? Are brands reaching out and wanting to co-mingle or co-brand with your organization? Something to definitely look at and think about. Now, we'll get back to Kristen in a few minutes, but first it's time for some dope B2B learnings from the vault of MarketingProfs articles. That's right, it's time to dig into the treasure trove of valuable information and pull out 2 pieces of gold to help you be a better B2B marketer. Article 1 this week is The Value of Traditional Marketing Mindset in a Digital World by Joe Fredeling. The digital marketing industry contains 2 types of people: experienced marketing professionals with a traditional approach who start by tapping into the psyche of their target audiences, and a newer generation of marketers who have trained in a digital-first era and familiarize themselves on a practical level with the various channels and platforms involved. But are there enough people who combine both skill sets? In keeping up with ever-changing digital channels and techniques, are we forgetting the who, what, why, and when, the fundamentals of traditional marketing? Are digital skills wasted without a true understanding of marketing principles? You'll have to check out the article to read the rest of that bad boy. Article number 2 this week is How to Create an Awesome Brand Persona, a step-by-step guide by Christy Fonterlira. I hope, Christy. Nah, I'm pretty sure, Christy, I jacked that up. So I apologize in advance. But the article goes like this. A brand's persona is the personality and character, its identity as perceived by its target audience. It is a way for a brand to differentiate itself from its competitors and create an emotional connection with its customers. The brand persona should pulse throughout your company culture, and services. A brand persona aims to unify everything about your company, including its values and spirits, through its appearance and interactions. When developing a brand persona, it's essential to remember the basic tenets of branding so you can represent your business effectively. Want to keep learning more? If so, check out the link in the description below after the live show to get access to both amazing Marketing Profs articles. All right, back to Kristen. Let's dive back into this conversation of how you, B2B marketers, can create human-like interactions in a increasingly digital world. In this clip, I wanted to ask Kristen, what are the hurdles? Ooh, you ever face any hurdles that we as B2B marketers should be paying attention to around creating human-like interactions around the sales and marketing funnel process? And does any of this ring true for you? Just wait. Here comes the clip because it might, or maybe not.
Oh man, I see. I feel like I could talk on this for forever because there's so many pieces. I think a big one is, so if you think about the funnel, right? Every time you make a transition point, so think if the funnel was like you taking a bucket and handing it to the next person and the bucket has to get into the house. Every time you move the bucket, right, a little bit of water comes spilling out unless you're being thoughtful about it. These are these friction points in the process. And so think about, you've just watched a webinar with us and now there's a contact us or like next steps form. So again, thinking about like, what's that interaction? Does the form ask stuff that I already knew because you had registered for the webinar? How does that feel? Does that feel like why this feels inauthentic? I fill out that form. I say what I want to talk to a rep about. This then gets lead scored and sent over to a rep. But I haven't passed through that piece of information, or the rep doesn't look at it, or whatever it is. And so now all of a sudden, what do? You get a cold email from a rep that probably says, I saw you attended our webinar and had more information. What can I do? And it's like, well, I already told you what I wanted on the previous form. And oh, by the way, also the webinar was on the topic. Maybe reference what the topic was. That's probably the thing I want to talk to you about. So it's like all these moments, especially when there's data transfer, information transfer, that suddenly feels like to somebody, geez, I already did this. Or it's like it's like a million little paper cuts, right? Where all of a sudden you feel like, I don't feel like this brand is thinking about me or listening to me, or, I'm almost like a burden. Like they're trying to filter me out, right? How many times have you heard somebody say like, I felt like I had to work so hard to talk to your team or for you to respond to me? It's like people feel that way because they feel like you put all these hurdles, to your point, along the way in that. So anyways, I don't know if I rambled on that, but the point is like there's these little moments, and I think people, they spend a lot of time to think about how does the water get from the well to the house, and they don't think about how the water gets from the person here that has to hand the bucket to the person here. And it's like every time you lose those little moments, it eats away at your credibility, eats away at your brand experience.
Eats away at your credibility. You don't want that. So I have a couple questions. Are you paying attention to the moment? Are you paying attention to the data? Does the data and the moments actually drive the future conversations of your potential customers? Something to think about. We're going to get some words of wisdom from Kristen here in a few minutes, but right now it's time to turn the spotlight on you, the Marketing Profs community. Yep, time for From the hashtag MPB2B community. We search far and wide in this hashtag MPB2B universe to find amazing information and conversations to bring to you, the masses. So first, make sure you're using the hashtag, and second, make sure you're having fun and adding value to the community along the way. Then we'll spotlight you or your crew on the show. This week, it's, well, MarketingProfs again. Their LinkedIn post goes a little something like this. If you want more engagement with your promotions, video is the way to go. Video have a 47% higher engagement rate than static ads, according to a 2023 study by Magna, and higher engagement results in more qualified leads. And that's not just on social media. Videos on your website are highly engaging too. Of course, creating videos can be time consuming and expensive. Can they? Anyway, not my post, their post, but new AI tools are here to help. Yes, they are. With the right tools, you can reduce your video production hassle and expense and create more videos. Something you all should be doing. They didn't say that. I said that. Better and faster than ever. Hashtag MPB2B. 2B. Hashtag B2B. Hashtag marketing. Hashtag AI. Hashtag video production, hashtag video editing, hashtag artificial intelligence. I'll put a link in the description below to AI for digital marketers, but you need to check out the description and click that link to check out the post and read or learn more in the future. Trust me, folks, don't get left behind. Marketing Smarts viewers, I have to ask, are you going to be the next to get the spotlight? Remember, community, use the hashtag MPB2B on Facebook, LinkedIn, or X, and get the light shine. I almost said Twitter. I almost did, but I just did by saying I almost did. Anyway, or on X, and get the light shined on your awesomeness in the next episode or a future episode of the Marketing Smarts live show. Pro tip, it won't hurt if you tag me in your post as well. I'm at George B. Thomas on LinkedIn and X. Okay, let's kick it back to Kristen and some words of wisdom around this topic of how you, B2B marketers, can create human-like interactions in an increasingly digital world. Here's what Kristen wanted to leave us with pertaining to words of wisdom.
I think I had seen a stat somewhere where it said like 40%, something like that. It was a high number of consumer experiences are negative when they go in to kind of engage with a brand, you know. And I think it's a really interesting point to say there's a ton of opportunity here that's sitting out. So I would say, you know, as much as possible to automate the pieces that you can, the part where the human element's not as important, right? Like I was talking about kind of like the data research element, that stuff like that, which is like, don't spend as much time on the places where you can leverage technology, and then put your humans into the places, you know, your human touch into the places that give you the biggest bang for your buck. And then look at the places where you feel like that last half mile is being dropped. So again, for example, the form, obviously I'll push on that, but it's not just that, right? The automation, from a Marketo or a HubSpot or whatever as well, so that these pieces just flow as much as possible without a human having to be part of that, so that you free up the human resource to get on the phone and talk to the customer, or to actually personalize out the email as much as possible, and to really look and say, hey, what's working? If I know how to do a case study, you know, if that's my template, then I do the same case study. And again, it goes to like that maximum of personalization, which is the format is still this, and this, but it's like a Mad Libs. You pull these pieces in. Like I just changed this piece, this piece, content is out, and it still can feel fresh and new, but you're not at scratch every single time that you do it. So yeah, I think for me, I don't know if they're tips and tricks or templates, but I always look to say, what's the part that a human can't replace, right? That's why when sales teams, for example, take an MQL and they put it in a marketing drip, they put it in a sales team drip, which is just marketing drip that they've made themselves, and like a sales loft or something. It's like, dude, I could have done that with marketing. Like, you're the human. I want you doing the human part of this interaction. And so it's all about thinking about what's the place where a human's perspective is the best. Everything else you should automate. You should try to leverage the tools for that as much as possible.
Leverage the tools as much as possible. Are you automating the parts where the human elements are not important? Or do you have the humans in the places that give you the biggest bang for the buck? How can you create a healthy balance of both? That's probably the question that you should be asking yourself. Have you enjoyed today's journey? Let us know. Use that hashtag MPB2B on whatever platform you're joining us on. It's time, ladies and gentlemen. Head to the description below. Click on the link to the full Marketing Smarts podcast with Kristen Habacht, and keep on learning more about how B2B marketers can create human-like interactions. That's you, by the way, in an increasingly digital world. That's where we live, by the way. Remember, these were just a few clips of the original Marketing Smarts podcast interview. If you got value from today's show, hit that like, and better yet, share it with a friend or a coworker if you have one. To keep learning more, hit subscribe or watch additional Marketing Profs videos on your favorite social channels, or head over to YouTube channel. If you head over to our YouTube channel, if you're not there yet, or you can go tune into the original Marketing Smarts podcast episode on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget to become part of the Marketing Profs community by heading over to mprofs.com/MP today. And as always, remember to be a happy, helpful, humble B2B marketing human. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Marketing Smarts live show next week.